I'm Rob Port from SayAnythingBlog.com, North Dakota's most popular political blog. I'm here with Bette Grande. She's a candidate for the U.S. House, seeking the nomination for the U.S. House at the NDGOP convention, which will be held this weekend. Betty's a state legislator representing the Fargo area. Bette, thanks for your time.
Oh, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here today.
You were one of the first candidates in the House race. Obviously, Public Service Commissioner Brian Kalk had initially was going to run for the Senate, switched his race to the House, and then shortly after that, you got into the race. Did you expect to be facing this many opponents when you first got into this House race?
I expected at least 3, but I wasn't really expecting that there was going to be 6 overall.
Yeah, it's a lot, and there's a lot of competition. Do you feel like that's a good thing for the party, this competition, or this level, I guess, of competition? So many candidates seeking the same office.
Well, I don't think it's been a problem here. It's been very fair. We're not working, not a lot of negative that's going on. We're just all working hard. We're all laying out our own agenda as far as where do we stand, what can we do, and why are we the best candidate. And as long as we stay focused on that, I think it gives the people an opportunity to vet out and find the best candidate. If you don't have any choices, you don't know if you have the best candidate.
When you talk about the other candidates who are in the race, how obviously you want to win and you want to get that nomination and you want to go on and face Pam Gullison in the House race. What differentiates Bette Grande from the other candidates in the field?
Well, I think what it is that, the people are going to be looking for somebody who's qualified, tested, prepared to go to work in Washington. And I bring the legislative experience to the table. So I know how the process is going to work. I know how to go out there and start working instead of spending up to maybe 5 or more years trying to really figure out that process. And then I've been in the tough battles. I've taken on some tough issues, so I know how to be prepared to stand up for something I believe in and something that our party platform has stated that they want defended. And in that tried and true tested person will be the one that they know can handle the challenges under pressure. There's no movement when the pressure's on. And that's what you need to know. One of the problems that I have heard about across the board is, well, how do we know you won't change when you get to Washington? Are you going to get sucked in by the good old boys? Well, I didn't get sucked in by the good old boys out in Bismarck. I know where my value system is. I have that solid foundation, and I'm not ashamed to stand on it. That's the one thing I'm finding with some of my opponents is they don't dare talk about the foundational values that they stand on that give them the ability to move forward in this race. I just don't see that I need to be ashamed of what my values are.
What's the number one issue for you going to Washington, D.C.? Say you win election, you're going off to Washington, D.C. When you get there, what's your number one issue?
The number one issue is getting the spending under control, and that is best served and best done by eliminating Obamacare in its totality. It's getting the regulations under control so that business can flourish. We need to get government back to what it stood for and what the founding fathers said it was supposed to be in the limited government role of what it stands for constitutionally and only constitutionally. Now, you don't do that overnight, but we know there's good people out there that are working on those types of plans. And you build that coalition with those people, we can accomplish these things.
I want to ask you about the Paul Ryan budget. I know that you wrote something. The Democrat nominee for the House, Pam Gullison, has already come out saying that she opposes the Paul Ryan budget, the latest iteration that was just created. I take it from your reaction, the Paul Ryan budget would be something you would support.
Well, right now it's the only one out there on the House side, and it's better than nothing, and it's a little better than he had before. But here's the thing. The Republican Study Group will be putting together their budget and what they would see is better, and I understand it's going to come in a little more conservative and quicker to implement and quicker to do. I would support that over the Paul Ryan one. Then, if I look across to the other chamber, DeMint and Paul have a another program that would actually even be tighter and quicker and better. So we have great plans as Republicans out there. What I want to point out, though, is the Democrats are running away from the slowest implementing, weaker of all of them. If that's where they're going to start from, we're not going to get anywhere with them. I mean, that's the whole premise behind this. My gosh, we're talking about pretty simple stuff with Ryan's.
Let me ask you this question, because obviously it's been a point of some consternation with conservatives with Representative Rick Berg, is that he voted for the debt deal while he was in the House, that ultimately resulted in raising the debt limit and creating the super committee, which we now know accomplished nothing. Would the debt deal, and recognizing obviously that 2020 hindsight is something that you have now that maybe the people voting for it at the time didn't have, but would that be something you would have voted for if you'd been in the House at the time?
When I looked at that and heard what was coming up, I immediately said, no, I would not. And on two premises. One, the super committee thing was just unconstitutional and not a good plan. You never turn over your authority. The House of Representatives is the power of the purse. You cannot turn over your authority to 6 or 10 or whatever number of people to run everything. I don't give away my people's vote into a smaller group's vote like that. We need to be able to come up with and understand the program. The House carries the power of the purse. They need to decide the spending.
What about speaking about Obamacare specifically? One issue that has come up has been this contraceptive issue, and I know this is an issue that you feel passionately about. But one of the talking points that have come up around it, and we've heard it a lot from the Democrat Senate candidate Heidi Heitkamp, somewhat also from the House candidate Pam Gullison, but the idea of this Republican war on women. As a woman who is also a Republican and a conservative, how does it make you feel when you hear that talking point?
Well, first and foremost, there is no war on women, and the thing is, they don't speak for me. So right there, that answers the fact that there's no war on women. If they're not speaking for me and I represent over 50% of the women, I think somebody has something backwards. It's more of a war on words. To me, when I look at what Obamacare has out there that they're calling the war on women with the contraception and all that comes with that, I mean, that's just the easy part. It's the abortions that have to be paid for with taxpayers' dollars against a person's will. It's the taxpayer dollars that would be used for killing of infants. That's disgusting. And that's not tolerable. And that is not a war on women. That is to stand up against that stuff, because that is the war on women. Think of the women that are ill-informed and not being able to be taken care of properly. That is what is so sad and disgusting in that whole discussion. This is really a war on our liberties. It's a war on motherhood. This is a war on conservative women.
Do you feel? I'm sorry. Do you feel like, I mean, when they say these things, that the Republican war on women, do you feel like they're trying to split women? I mean, because obviously, women feel like it's their body, and they want to be able to go out and make conscious healthcare choices for themselves, whether it be to take contraception and things like that. And I even set the abortion issue aside from that, because I guess for me, there's a third person there, which is the child, and it's not just one person making the decision. But even just limiting the scope to women making decisions for themselves, whether or not they want to take contraceptives, things like that. It seems to me like really what the Democrats are for is opposing that sort of choice. Women being able to make the decision, listen, I don't want to pay for contraceptions. I don't want any part of it, because that's a personal decision that I make. Their assumption seems to me that women who are making that choice shouldn't be allowed to make that choice.
Well, absolutely. And it's even stranger than that is, why should I pay for somebody else's choice? I mean, the mandates on insurance are what is a problem with insurance. That's why we have insurance issues and insurance costs that are going too high. So now all we've done in this case is add a bunch of more mandates to the insurance. And why should I have to pay for somebody else's? It doesn't make any sense. especially, you know what? They have free access to contraception. You can buy a rider for your own insurance if you wish to have contraception if that's what you want. But why should I be forced to have that as a mandate in my insurance policy even for myself if that's not what I want? But also, why am I paying for somebody else's?
That's a good point.
It's wrong on so many levels.
Let's move on to fiscal issues. You talked about the importance of balancing the budget, getting spending under control, having the government live within its means. We talked about the Ryan budget, but give it to me in realizing that we don't have time to get down into the nitty gritty. But give it to me in some broad strokes. How do we balance the budget?
Well, it will happen when Obamacare goes away, because of the ability to free up the markets and people to start knowing how and when they can spend money and hire people and do things. It has held up our economy from the day it started. And we need to get to that point first and foremost and allow the markets to come forward and be vital again.
And what about spending reforms beyond Obamacare?
I have said all along in this campaign, I think I was the first one who said, go back to the 2008 levels of spending. There's a good starting point. Let's see what that looks like in the budget. Let's see what those levels are. If we need to go more, there's what is out there called a penny plan, and you drop a percentage a year until you get to the point where you are balancing the budget, getting rid of the debt, and moving forward in this nation as quickly as possible. The other thing is the regulation industry is a big problem. It is what is slowing down many of the areas that are national security, such as agriculture and oil or energy. And if we do not maintain national security in those levels, it costs us more in other areas.
I want a quick decision just about the process of getting the nomination. We had news earlier in the cycle that Kevin Cramer wouldn't be going to the convention and seeking the nomination there. He's going to go straight to the primary ballot. Today, news breaking that Senate candidate Dwayne Sand is also bypassing the convention and going straight to the primary. What do you think of these decisions?
The one thing is that I have said along the way on this trek too is we've been asked on a couple of debates and forums, well, are you going to promise not to forego the primary? And I have always said, no, I will not make that promise. But I don't say that lightly. I don't say that because I want to go into the primary if I don't have the endorsement. But what I do want to make sure that people understand is that's a part of this process, and it's a right people have. We have it set up that you can get 300 votes and you can continue on and do a primary or just skip right to a primary. Now, having said that, do I think it's right that after we got started and after we all knew that who was in the race and what was going on, that somebody took their ball and went inside and came out with a different game to play? I don't like that. That part bothers me. And the other part as far as with Mr. Sand is that at the 11th hour, really? Now all of a sudden we've decided we don't like the game? Well, why did you play it in the first 3 months then? There's some real issues to that type of thing. As I don't mind if we all know that this is the game and the rules we're playing by. Great, let's do it. I don't mind. I don't mind if 4 of us go to the primary, if that's what it's going to be. But we need to know that those were the rules. That's how it's going to be. But let's all play by the same rules the whole way through the game.
It's changed the dynamics, obviously. I guess the voting dynamics, the dynamics of the convention. First, Cramer's decision, which is obviously most impactful on your race, and then of course Sand's decision. Would you consider going to a primary at this point if you didn't win at the convention, knowing of course that you're running right now to win at the convention? Would you consider going to a primary?
I guess I would have to see how this whole convention plays out. If there was an issue that came forward, and this is why we have the ability to go to primary, then let's say an issue came forward and the top 2 people are only 1 vote apart, and it turns out that 1 vote decides this. Well, maybe that is a time that says, you know what, let's take it to a bigger group of people. That's one scenario that, comes to the top of my head. I haven't thought this through, to be honest. the other side is, what if there is a part of the process that really doesn't play out fair? And I can't think of the example right now, but let's say that. And do I want to say here and now today, I will not do that? Well, I don't think anybody should do that. Why would I forego a right I have?
All right. Betty, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
No problem.